Thank you all for coming. So yeah, this is some recent work, but it builds on what I've been doing for like 15, 20 years, I guess, on trying to quantify global migration. And it was led by Thomas, who's just finished his PhD at Cambridge and Imperial. So the basic motivation behind a lot of my research is on trying to quantify global migration flows. So I used to work in an institute in Vienna where we were building global population projections to project future populations. And for that, we needed inputs for the fertility rates, the mortality rates, and the migration rates. And for the migration, for every country to get a number on how many people are going in and out, it's basically impossible to get that from official data. So once you go beyond Europe and maybe North America and a few East Asian countries, Australia, New Zealand, then you're unlikely to find any kind of official data on migration because it's pretty difficult to collect. It's expensive. You need to have a continuous monitoring of your population to see how many people are coming in and out. And that really prohibits a lot of analysis of international migration on its trends, and it prohibits not only the monitoring of it, but how we can set policies effectively and how we can develop theories, because it's very Western biased in a way. Where we've got the data, we can do the analysis, but if we look at kind of global south, it's very difficult to think about this on especially looking at on the outwards migration perspective. And in recent years, there's been a lot of sort of demands for better data in both the SDGs a bit indirectly, but then the follow-up in the migration kind of governance sphere was the Global Compact of Migration that was signed by pretty much all the countries. And the number one objective of that was to provide better migration data to encourage governments to collect data on migration a bit better. So on the global level, which is where I'm working, since 2013, the UN started to publish data on migrant populations. That is, they give a count in every country and every destination of the number of people by their country of birth. So you know, for example, in China, how many people that were born in Britain are resident there, and you know that in 5-year intervals, in 1990, 1995, 2000, and so on. So this is what we call stock population data. And it doesn't tell us much about the information of the dynamics of migration, right? We might know maybe there's 1,000 British people in China, and 5 years later, there might be 1,100. So it's increased by 100, but we don't know if that's 100 people who came in, where they came from, did they come from Britain, or maybe they came from another third country, and some might have left as well, and then we don't know, so we just know on net 100 came in. So what I'm really interested in is this flow. This is over a given interval, how many people are arriving. This is what we need for population projection models. This is what we need when we want to really see the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of migration policies. And this is really what we need to sort of address basic challenges with migration data. This plot is from the UN, so that's the stock data, right? This is the number of people by their place of birth, by their destination. Okay. So initially, I worked on this, what I call an indirect method. So I used the stock data and saw how they changed over time, and then tried to figure out how many people needed to move around in this kind of plot here to match the changes in the stocks, right? And of course, the stocks can go up and down through births of the native populations, through deaths of the migrants themselves, so that will reduce it. And then also the flows, the remainder bit is what I'm trying to calculate these arrows in here to the changes in the stocks. So with that, I was able to generate like a first set of global migration flows that have sort of never been done before, essentially. And then sort of over the years, sort of extended it, tried to improve its accuracy, and build up some battery of like validation tests to see how well it's performing against these kind of Western countries where we do have the data. Does it make sense at all? And where is it kind of weak and strong? And then last year I worked on a paper, this paper came out led by Guanghe Qi, who works at Facebook. So we worked together for a couple of years where we built a global migration flow database of monthly flows, going back to 2019 all the way over COVID, over 2022. And we did that based on Facebook data. So he was working for Facebook. So from another team in Facebook, he received data like this for 3 billion people, 3 billion Facebook users, all the Facebook users. We could see their location. So that was from another team that had this kind of black box algorithm that was determining when they were logging on, where they were. And then we were able to see for each individual if they were switching between countries. And then we had to it got a little messy in some cases, like figure out if they're overlapping in different places. Have they actually moved based on this location data? Have they switched country? And so we tried to design a algorithm that matched that the definition of the UN, which is that you change your usual place of residence. It might be over a 12-month period. So you spend the majority of the time over a 12-month period in a different country from the previous 12 months. And so with that, we were able to get this estimate of the global migration flows monthly. So we saw this big dip during COVID in the global migration, and a recovery even a bit higher afterwards. And of course, we weighted this data, right? So this was all based on Facebook users, and then in each country, we knew the share of population that were using the internet, the share of the population of internet users that were using Facebook. So we could kind of weight the estimates to match the total population rather than just the Facebook population, right? So we tried to unbias it in this paper. Yeah. Oh, this was just some graphic of the data, so you can see all the flows going around between the different countries. So we already built up this big matrix of flows for every month there. Okay, and then more recently, so we have these promises or differences. So we have this indirect methods that I mentioned before. So there's a lot of kind of problems in some of that data, especially when the stock data that the UN data is supplying is a bit weak, or we're not quite sure. Maybe some countries haven't had censuses for a long time, so then they're not too sure about the actual data they're going in, and that will lead to some erroneous kind of flow estimates. And also, we're only getting flows over a 5-year period, so it's quite compared to the Facebook stuff, right? We're losing a lot of detail there. These direct methods based on the digital trace data, the Facebook data, it doesn't cover all countries. So Facebook excluded some countries like that are sensitive. China, obviously, not so many Facebook users, but like Afghanistan, Syria, for example, we had to leave out. So the recent work that Thomas has been working on is using this deep learning method to reconcile both the UN stock data and then bring in other flow data that we have and we believe is of good quality. So that includes the Facebook data, some efforts in Europe to estimate harmonized migration flows using the official data, and then also some flow data, reported flow data from the Statistics Office of New Zealand, Finland, and Sweden. So we chose those three because those have population registers or border points where they're able to collect migration flow data at a very high quality and matching this 12-month definition that we're using. And then we also get net migration data from around 20 countries where we also believe that's a very of good quality. And then what we do, we use a deep learning kind of neural network to estimate the migration flows between country I, so going from origin I to country J by their nationality. Okay, so to do that, I won't go into too much detail about the neural network, but we kind of have to target those three data sources that I talked about, the Facebook data, the stock data, and the collections of official statistics. And then we can bring in a lot of covariate data as well about the distances, about the GDPs, and other factors that might be related to migration. So this is just an idea of what we're doing. We're estimating this flow by 3 dimensions, the origin, the destination, and the birthplace. So we kind of get this cube at the end. And then this is fed into, this is born out of these covariates, 18 different covariate measures, including distance and GDP and so on. We have the stock data going in the 5-year intervals, and then we getting this latent space kind of estimates that the flow is getting in. And we can compare that to observed like Facebook data, which is like one plane of this cube, the origin destination stuff, and perhaps net migration data, which is the difference between the rows and the columns there. So we kind of have this kind of layout going on. And so you can see this is the estimates of the flows over time that we've estimated. So you can see the general rise in the global migration flow estimate that we get going. This is annual flow estimates, right, that we've never seen before. And we can sort of see the general picking up the patterns going on, so including sort of a lot of Venezuelans and so on moving out. I think I have to skip through a bit. So we do a lot of comparisons in the paper. So this is, for example, our estimate with uncertainty. This is compared to some European flow estimates, harmonized estimates. This is for Poland to France. Yes, maybe to Finland, we also have like Finnish data, these blue cubes in here. And then we have the Facebook data on the end, these orange ones. So we can see a lot of matching very well to the outside data sources there. So we're able to capture quite a lot of patterns. So this, for example, is when Poland entered the EU and then was allowed the freedom of movement of workers. We got this big increase in the UK of Polish workers that we pick up very nicely in the data in our estimates. This is in a more data scarce area in Asia Pacific. And here we have our stock estimates compared to the UN estimates every 5 years, and then our total flows compared to some Facebook estimates here. And this is the net migration compared to the country's official data. So, compared to the UN net migration, which we didn't use and we don't really like too much because it doesn't look plausible in some cases. And this is in a really data scarce situation in sub-Saharan Africa, where we're getting our estimates and we're comparing them to sort of refugee data. So we're a bit higher because we not only cover refugees, but they're all migrants in some cases. And also sort of able to get out very detailed estimates there. And so our performance, so these are the previous methods that have been these indirect methods. And this is how well they correlate with official data from these different data collections, Eurostat, IPUMP's data, UN flow data from various countries. So there are a lot of overlapping countries in here, but then we compare them on these different migration measures. And in all cases, our kind of neural network outperforms all these indirect methods, tends to have a lot higher correlation. And we're also able to see in the neural network how sort of sensitive it is to different input measures, covariates that we're using. So we kind of can simulate from them. And so we sort of see life expectancy coming up here. These kind of development measures, GDP, they are having a big impact on the, we're very sensitive to those estimates in our final flow estimate. Obviously, it kind of makes a bit more sense because migration is responsive to these kind of development theories, development factors. So just to summarize, we've got now the global flow estimates from 1990 to 2014 by every year. And we not only have it just at the flow, the origin destination flows, we also know the birthplace flows and also the stocks, the birthplace to the destination. And so we are able to have this kind of framework to reconcile all these different levels of data. And I think it's going to be a big improvement over kind of these indirect methods that we've been using so far. Even for the UN that is producing these stocks every 5 years, it's very simple methods that I think we've made a big gain for. So it's a working paper at the moment. It's in submission. And you can, if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find deep learning and migration. You'll get there. And all the data is available now already. So if you want to start working on migration flow kind of theories or anything, then you can have a look at it there. Okay, thanks very much.